Tilehurst End podcast by Reading fans for Reading fans.
Hello and welcome to the Tilehurst End Weekend Preview. In the international break, England turned their fortunes around after staring relegation in the face. Now can Reading do the same, beginning with a trip to Wigan Athletic on Saturday? My name is Olly Allen, your host for today's show, and I'm pleased to say that I'm joined once again by the Wokingham Paper's Tom and Crocker. How's it going, Tom?
Yeah, pretty good. It's been a busy week, good international break for England, and obviously a pretty busy one on the Reading front as well.
Usually it's quite a quiet international break for Reading. I think certainly last month there wasn't very much news at all, but obviously there was that one big bit of news for Reading over the course of the international break with a high-profile departure on Monday. And despite the fact this is a preview show, we can't really avoid talking about this news, and it is, of course, the announcement that Ron Gourlay has stepped down from his position of chief executive at Reading with immediate effect. And it's probably fair to say that this was incredibly well received, I think, by the fan base. Tom, I think Gourlay not being the most popular figure at the club since his appointment in July 2017, but the news did very much come as a bit of a surprise there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like it was sort of rumblings over the weekend. I mean, obviously we tend to get an interview of somebody over the international break, sort of away from the playing side, just something a bit different, and that didn't happen last week, so you wonder then if something might have been going on. But yeah, it came a little bit out of the blue on obviously Monday morning. It got announced, and yeah, like you say, he's been a bit of a divisive figure, Gourlay, over recent months. There seemed to be the frustrations from the fans have turned towards his direction. So yeah, like you say, there's not too many tears shed, I don't think, amongst the fan base. The results, obviously, since he came in, haven't been great, and yeah, he's, like I say, stepped down straight away now, and it's in the process of looking for a new one.
I was going to ask, actually, obviously it has only been 3 days since that announcement was made, but any sort of indication who might replace him at this early stage? I mean, Brian Teveridden has been brought up by a couple of fans. I mean, I think Nick Hammond, another well-known name to have been mentioned. I mean, it is really sort of a key appointment now, sort of considering the current predicament that Reading currently find themselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously you've got the owners who are obviously still running the club, and then you've got obviously other people on the board. Nigel Howe, that's those sort of thing. We'll sort of oversee what's going on, I think, for the meantime, you'd imagine. But yeah, I don't think they're going to particularly go and rush into an appointment. It doesn't sound like there's anyone straight away lined up, from what I understand. Yeah, so I think they're going to try and sort of take the time and get the right person. Like you say, those names, Nicky Hammond and Brian Teveridden, are probably ones that you'd look at, and they're obviously obvious names to put to it.
Yeah.
The only thing with Teveridden, obviously he's very well liked by the fans, and the thing that doesn't really seem to come up is he's only really just gone in at Rosalie. I'm a bit dubious as to whether the owner, she obviously owns that club as well, if that would be a good move on her part to suddenly make another change at that club as well and risk upsetting a few people over there. Maybe it might not be the best thing for her, but yeah, obviously he is working as a CEO, so he has got that experience. But I think there's plenty of other people out there. They'll go through and try and find one now. Like obviously Gianluca Nani came a bit out of the blue, so there's other people that you probably haven't thought of yet, which would probably fit the bill. So I think there'll be plenty of takers for it, and it'll be a discussion for them to have over the next few weeks. But like I said, I don't think there's going to be anything. There's nobody immediately lined up as far as we're aware. But yeah, like you say, there's names there that fans might like to see back, and I think it's probably maybe a wise move to go down someone a bit different, someone from a bit outside of fresh eyes to have a look at things and try and bring the club back to. The identity of the club is something that's been spoken about. Obviously, bring it a bit back towards the community and involvement with the local people. So hopefully they can find someone with that sort of attributes. Who that is just yet, I think, is a bit of a mystery. But I'm sure they'll find somebody in good time.
One man who is still in his job is, of course, Paul Clement. It will certainly be interesting to see if his position is affected by the change of CEO. I mean, obviously brought in by Ron Gourlay back in March, and he has survived the international break. Obviously, the 2-2 draw with Ipswich 2 weeks ago deemed enough to keep him in the job, and but now he faces what he's described as the team's toughest run of games yet in the next couple of weeks, and he's certainly not out of the woods yet. I mean, Carlos Carvajal, the latest name to be linked with replacing him, with Reading still only out of the relegation zone on goal difference, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's fair that the run of fixtures, like you say, is probably the toughest. On the flip side, they have picked up good results against some of these teams in the last sort of year or so. So it's, as we said before, if they can go off to a good start on Saturday, you never know what could happen. But yeah, they're certainly not out of the woods. They're still level with the relegation zone at the end of the day. So they've got to be picking up the points quickly. Obviously, it's going to be an interesting dynamic now. Clement was effectively brought into the club by Gourlay, worked with him at Chelsea before, and now Gourlay's gone. It's who makes that decision, I suppose, to change a manager. If they're looking for a new CEO, do they want to be looking for a new manager as well at the same time? It's might possibly buy him a little bit more time, interestingly, maybe, if you look at it that way. But if you lose the next few games, there's still going to be a lot of pressure on it. And then whenever a new CEO does come in, they might have their ideas of who they want to be in charge. That tends to be how it works. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks. I think he's still got, Paul Clement's still got a few games to carry on. Obviously, they drew with Ipswich and won the game before that as well. So they've picked up a few points recently, which has helped his cause. And obviously, with Gourlay gone now, people will probably turn a bit more focus maybe towards Paul Clement and the job he's doing. But yeah, like I said, I think this run of games is going to be very difficult. And when you look at who they've got to play, they could really do something on Saturday against Wigan. I think they've got, obviously, Leeds away on Tuesday will be a very particularly tough one. And then it's Stoke at home who are struggling as well. So there's points to be got in there in this tough run of games, but like you say, they're going to be difficult to come by, and we've just got to hope they can start on Saturday. I think if they can win there, then that'll give them a real boost.
Yeah, I mean, the first of these games does, of course, come against Wigan this weekend. It is about time we talked about the game after plenty of talk about what's going on behind the scenes at Reading, but Wigan currently sits 16th in the Championship table, just 4 points above Reading, and they started the season relatively well, following promotion from League One last season before they've sort of dropped off in recent weeks, and they've lost their last 4 games in succession. However, they are a lot better at home than they are away, losing just once at the DW Stadium all season. And Reading's recent away record is, of course, quite patchy. I think we've not won in 4 away games, I think, potentially. But Nick Powell is currently Wigan's top scorer with 4 goals, and he has the most assists as well with 4. I think it's a bit touch and go on whether he is fit for the weekend. But currently Wigan are the favourites for this game against Reading. They're 5-6 according to Oddschecker, #GambleAware. Reading are 10-3 and the draw is 13-5. I mean, do you see them causing Reading much problems, Tom, or realistically, as you said, is this sort of Reading's best chance of getting a win with some very tough games coming up?
I think it's one that both teams will go in thinking they've got a real chance to turn their form around. They say Wigan... Yeah. They started really well. I thought they would do quite well this season. Actually, they've dropped off a little bit. Like I say, lost their last 4, and they'll be looking at a home game against Reading as a chance to put that right, I suppose, after a couple of weeks training together during the break. So, yeah, from their perspective, they'll certainly be looking at it and thinking they can be winning it. But I think Reading, their away form's been interesting this year. Obviously, they started it pretty well, and I think they've only actually won 1 on the road, though. They've got a few draws, but yeah, it's not been for a while. They've picked up a win away, so they could really do with that on the weekend. I think they got they're good enough to do it. Paul Clement said he's expecting a sort of real physical game. I think both their centre backs are 6'5", I think he said, so they're expecting a real battle up there. And it's whether they're up for the fight, I suppose. And I think they probably will be. Reading, I think, like you say, I think everyone is probably going to expect them to not really pick up anything at Leeds on Tuesday. You never know, but I think this has got to be the one where they look at it thinking they can win it. And yeah, I think it could, as with so many of these games this season, it could really go either way. And I think both teams will really fancy their chances they can win it.
Well, so far this season, Reading have won both of their matches following international breaks, beating Preston 3-2 in September and then Millwall 3-1 in October. And obviously that is a very small sample size. And is it nothing more than a coincidence, Tom, or is it a sign that maybe this team does sort of do positive work in the 2-week break and gets really up for the first game back, and it just sort of fades from there potentially?
I'm not too sure if there's too much being read into it. Obviously, I think Preston and Millwall aren't having the best of seasons either. I think that Millwall game, by all accounts, Reading were a little bit fortunate to come away with the win there. So, yeah, we'll see if they can go away to Wigan and make it three in a row. Then I think that maybe is a bit of a trend then. But until then, I think it's probably maybe just a bit more of a coincidence. But it's a nice little thing for them to have. I'm sure it will get mentioned. They do tend to start fairly well after the break, and I guess it gives them ideally a chance to get a few players back. That might be a big part of it as well. They have a stronger team maybe after those couple of weeks out. So hopefully that's the case again on Saturday for what will no doubt be a difficult game.
We are getting into this run of games now where there's no international break again till March. So it's sort of 3-4 consecutive months now of action, especially that Christmas period. Obviously talk quite a lot about how hectic that schedule is and sort of how important it is to build some momentum. So hopefully we can get a win at the DW on Saturday. It is now time to find out a little bit more about Wigan in the view from the town end, where we get the thoughts of an opposing fan ahead of the game.
The view from the town end. What the opposition think.
It is time for the view from the town end here on the Tilehurst End Weekend Preview, and with Reading travelling to Wigan Athletic on Saturday. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Chris from the Pie at Night podcast. How's it going, Chris?
It's okay. I've been off work today, so I've had a good day.
Getting back into the swing of things ahead of the return of the Championship at the weekend, and I wanted to start sort of with how the season's gone for you guys so far. Obviously, back in the Championship after winning the League One title last season. I mean, you started the season relatively well. I think got up to third at one point, I think, but carried on a run of 4 straight defeats, and now in 16th. And what is that down to? Has anything sort of changed from those early stages of the season?
We've been hit by injuries. Our first choice front four are all injured. Nick Powell's been in and out of the team, struggling with injuries on and off. Grigg, we've lost for a long time. Gavin Massey, who started the season on fire, playing really well. The formation we were playing suited the team that had come up, and I think it's just a case of if you take the first choice sort of front four attacking players out of any team, then they're going to struggle at some point. So that's purely what it's down to. The goals seem to have dried up a bit. We're not scoring as freely as we were, and we don't seem as solid as we were either. A lot of, and I know it's different because it's a league below, but a lot of what our success has been built on last year was a solid defence. And we seemed to do quite well last season counter-attacking, where teams would come on to us and we'd be able to counter-attack. We struggled to break teams down that would come and put 10 men behind the ball. So sort of ahead of the season, we were sort of thinking, well, it's not going to be like that in this league. There's going to be more teams that will come and have a go at us, which will play into our hands and help us to get decent results by counter-attacking. However, as much as that's happened, we've struggled, like I say, we've struggled defensively for some reason, and the goals have literally dried up a bit because of the fact that we've got so many injuries in our attacking positions.
Well, I think we've kept just 1 clean sheet so far this season, so it'll be interesting to see sort of who wins that battle Saturday. But, I mean, looking at these last 4 defeats, one came against Millwall, but the last 3 have been against Sheffield United, Leeds and Middlesbrough. Sort of all teams that have been some of the best in the division this season. I think back in the summer, what were your expectations like heading into the campaign? Obviously, as mentioned, Wigan won the League One title last season, as they did 2 years ago, of course, before suffering relegation sort of back down straight away. Did you sort of feel that the club sort of prepared better this time around?
Yeah, 2 years ago when we got relegated, it was a case of the season that we got promoted out of League One, over that summer transfer window, Gary Caldwell seemed to make too many changes. Although at the time you just felt it was like strengthening the squad. We need to make additions for a step up in the level of football we'd be playing. But then in retrospect, looking back, it was like, well, he made too many changes, didn't keep the balance of the team right, and this, that, and the other. This year we went up. We made a few signings in the summer, but they seemed to complement what we already had, and we did keep together the majority of the squad that had won the League One title last year, and it was a case of just complementing what we had. I defy any Wigan fan to say to you at the start of the season that they would have expected us to do anything better than sort of mid-table-ish.
Yeah.
Was sort of as much as the expectations was go, as in terms of what we would want. Anything above the bottom relegation places is a bonus. It's a case of this year. It was a case of staying up, consolidating, and working from there, because we didn't want to be in that position of getting relegated again and becoming a bit of a yo-yo club. We seem to be too good for League One, but not good enough for the Championship. The other thing was we've had this Chinese takeover ongoing for God knows how long, and we didn't know how that was going to pan out throughout the course of this season. We kept getting told it was getting nearer and nearer, but the longer those sorts of things drag on and you don't hear information about stuff, which obviously is tied up with stock exchange rules regards what they can put out and what they can't put out. However, the longer it drags on as a fan, you start thinking, well, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? That's all gone through now. But again, we're still not very clear on generally what the plans are for us and where we go with it.
I mean, Paul Cook, of course, is the manager, the man in charge. Somebody who's sort of done quite a good job in sort of the lower leagues with Chesterfield and with Portsmouth. This, though, is, of course, his first season managing at Championship level. Does it seem like he's sort of up to the task?
Oh, definitely. I wouldn't want to swap him for anything. The brand of football he plays, he's very refreshing in the way he speaks to the media and this, that and the other, and he reminds us a lot, or a few of us, he reminds a few of us of Paul Jewell. When Paul Jewell first took over at Wigan, and obviously he was instrumental in our rise from the League Two, from what was League One then, League Division 2, up to the Premier League, and obviously the without wanting to bring it up, the season that we ended up winning the league and beating you to promotion to the Premier League on the final day. Paul Cook reminds us of Jewell quite a bit. He's a chirpy scouser. He seems to know the right way of getting the players motivated and getting his methods across. And like I say, the brand of football that he's played, we've played good quality attacking, attractive football. And there's just a bit of a buzz about the place with him in charge.
I think on most of these FIFA battalions, someone seems to always bring up something that their team has done against Reading, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. But looking ahead to this weekend, then how much have you seen sort of Reading's season so far? I mean, I suppose as you've slipped down the table, you've probably paid more attention to sort of how the teams like ourselves are getting on.
I'll be completely honest with you. I am completely ignorant as to league positions, who's in and around us. I don't really pay much attention to it. I was thinking before when we was getting ready to come on, I was thinking I haven't even looked at like who plays for you anymore, or I couldn't tell you who your manager was. Last I heard, it was Jaap Stam, but I don't think is he still there?
It's Paul Clement at the moment. Yeah.
All right. Paul Clement. Yeah. So it's one of those.
I'm not too sure how long he's got left, so it might well change by next week. So
yeah, I don't tend to even think about the game too much until the weekend. Probably have a look Saturday morning, but it's at the end of the day, league position throughout the season doesn't really matter unless you feel like you're not going to get any better off than where you currently are.
Yeah.
I just think, well, wait till the end of the season and find out where we are.
As for yourselves, then who should Reading fans look out for on Saturday? Who do you think might be the key player? I mean, you mentioned quite a few attacking players potentially injured, but who do you think might be able to potentially win the game for you guys?
If Powell's fit, then he's the difference. We're a completely different team with him in it than when he's missing. It's just a case of he's that link between midfield and attack, and just everything sort of gels get together better when he's playing. So he's the one I would say to look out for if he's playing. Griggs been training properly this week, but probably won't make the squad. He's not played any reserve games or anything that I know of yet, so he won't make the squad. But Powell would be the one. He's the one that can sort of get a goal out of nothing. If he's interested, I suppose. Some fans he don't seem to have shown it as much this season, but throughout the course of last season, there was games where he just completely disinterested. However, there was an interview with Gary Caldwell put out a few months back, and he talked about Nick Powell and said he has got the ability to play at the highest level. It's just a case of he finds the game that easy. He just sort of, it's like it's beneath him, sort of thing, which can come across as a bit arrogant, but I know what he was meaning. Caldwell referred to a game when we were in League One where we didn't play as well as expected, and Caldwell was absolutely bollocking the players on the training ground the day after, and Nick Powell basically just turned around and pinged one in the top corner from about 40 yards out, as if to say, "Look, I can do it. Don't you know what I mean? You shouldn't be having a go at me," sort of thing. But I think it was more of a case of, it's all right, you can do it, but try doing it. Start doing it every week, and then we won't be like I wouldn't have to be telling you off, sort of thing. He's definitely the one that makes the difference. There's
plenty of players at Reading who quite clearly have talent, but certainly don't show it on a regular basis. But can I get a score prediction then finally from you for the weekend?
I don't know. I'll take a draw now, to be honest. Just a draw and a clean sheet.
Yeah.
Which, as much as a draw and a clean sheet means for a 0-0 game, I don't know. I think the fact that we've had 4 defeats on the bounce, and like you say, the 3 of them were against clubs going to the top, like fighting out for the title at the top of the league. Even then, at the start of the season, I didn't really think there were many teams in the league that we couldn't give a good game, and it's because it's that sort of league, isn't it? If you turn up
division,
if you turn up on your day and put a good shift in, there's no reason why you can't beat anybody, and I suppose it goes from week to week. You get results that you don't expect, and anybody can beat anybody on the day. But I'll take a draw now.
I would tentatively say probably a 1-1 draw. I think we seem to play quite well straight after the international breaks, but our away form's not been that great recently. I mean, any from your end, sort of any concerns of being sort of dragged into the relegation fight if you do lose it at the weekend?
I don't know. I think once we get the likes of Grigg and Massey back playing, and they're both training, I do think we'll see a turn up in form. I would like to see us tighten up at the back, because I do think if we are going to if we're going to end up struggling, that's where we ultimately end up staying up. It's the team generally with the tightest defence that tends to stay up. Yeah. But I don't know. I think we'll be all right. We're a team that generally, as a club, we sort of struggle in winter. We do all right at the start of the season, struggle throughout winter, and then once the weather gets nice and the pitches improve, then we do all right. We've always sort of had a strong finish. We have a running joke that we don't start playing properly till end of February. So we'll see.
As long as you finish well, hopefully that should be enough to keep you up. But my thanks then to you, Chris, for joining me on The View from the Town End. All the best at the weekend and for the rest of the season.
No problem, you too. Thank you.
Fantastic. It's now time then for me and Tom to discuss Reading's team news ahead of Saturday and pick up preferred lineups for the game.
Get social with the boys.
Find them on Twitter
at the Tilehurst End
and facebook.com/the Tilehurst End.
Welcome back to the Tilehurst End Weekend Preview, looking ahead to Wigan Athletic versus Reading this Saturday. It's obviously been 2 weeks since the last game, so hopefully some of the injured players are a step closer to returning. But equally, I believe, Tom, there may be a couple of new absences as well that Paul Clement spoke about in his pre-match press conference today at Hogwood.
Yeah, I think the main one will be Mo Barrow, who started the last game. Obviously had his spell out recently. He's been back in the last few games. He's been unwell all week, hasn't trained, so he sounds like he's a big fat doubt for Saturday. They're hoping he might be back for Tuesday, but it doesn't sound like he's going to play at Wigan. And then the other one who's picked up another injury is McShane. Obviously he hasn't played much at all recently either, but he's aggravated his previous injury. I think it's a knee problem he had, but yeah, he's also unavailable. So those two won't be available for selection. The rest of them, there's a few guys sort of back into training, like say, he said Dave Edwards is close to rejoining training. Then there's a few of the guys I think are playing for the 23s tomorrow. I think Friday they got a game. So Popper, Harriet, Clement, and I think Omar Richards are all meant to be playing that game. So they're all on their way back. Obviously they're all fit. It's just down to them to get in the squad now. And you look at them, all of those guys are well down the pecking order. So in terms of the first team squad, it's pretty much as you were. Manone's back in training as well, but I don't think he hasn't trained fully with the team yet. It's just sort of in individual training, so I don't think he'll be available this weekend, but should be available afterwards. But I think the rest of them is pretty much as you were.
All that considered then, what would your team be for the weekend?
So I'd bring Walker back in goal. I think he was very nearly picked in the last game. I think Yakola didn't have a great game against Ipswich, so I think Walker back in goal. Back four, I'd go Yadom. I'd bring Ilori alongside Moore and Blackett. I think now would be a good time to get Ilori back in just ahead of these run of games. I think O'Shea was good for those games where they had to get results before the break, but I think now would be a good time to try and get Ilori back in. And then keep Kelly, Bakuna, and I'd keep Runamotor in. Obviously he came off at half-time against Ipswich, but I think he didn't have a particularly bad game there. I think his physicality in midfield would be quite handy for this one. And then with Barrow out, I'd bring in McCleary. I think he did well against Ipswich when he came on, so I think he's ready for a start now. And then keep it with Baldock and Yaku Mate. Mate's still carrying a bit of a knock, but it sounds like he's going to play again. So yeah, that'd be the team I'd go with.
It's a very similar lineup for me. I've gone with Sam Walker in goal as well. I think obviously Yakola didn't have the best game against Ipswich. I mean, it's sort of much of a muchness with the goalkeepers at the moment. It'll be interesting when all three of them are back fit potentially on Tuesday night. I mean, I'd probably potentially bring Vito Manone back in when he's fully fit. At the back, I've gone with the same Yedon, Moore, Ilori and Blackett. A midfield three of David Myler. David Myler. Leandro Bakuna and Liam Kelly. I think Runamotor for me was virtually non-existent really against Ipswich. I mean, that might be a bit harsh, but I'd probably take him out for this one. And then a front three of Gareth McCleary. I mean, he seems to be progressing quite well upon his return from injury. It's quite good to see. I mean, his sort of flashes of brilliance that we know he can produce. Yaku Mate, of course, he's probably the first name on the team sheet at the moment right now. And then Josh Sims as well. And Sims and Myler are there. Obviously, then the two differences between our two lineups, and they're two players sort of who have both been out of the squad for the past few games, and I've sort of consistently asked for them to come back in. I think I'm probably one of David Myler's few fans out there, but I just think they've been a little bit unfairly treated perhaps by Paul Clement. I mean, especially when a team sort of isn't performing consistently, they probably deserve a chance to come back in. I mean, it might just be me, but I mean, they're obviously two players who both came in the summer and haven't got much game time in there. They're not the only ones sort of missing out. Mark McNulty's just got 2 league starts to his name. Paul McShane, when he was fit, wasn't getting in. I mean, it's easy to forget that Paul Clement is still a Reading player as well. I mean, we've spoken numerous times, Tom, about sort of how big the squad is and potential exits in January. I mean, do you think these are sort of the most likely players to leave? Obviously, Myler potentially on a loan perhaps, and Sims is obviously on a loan himself from Southampton, so he might potentially be recalled.
Yeah, obviously a lot will depend on what happens in these next few weeks. There's a lot of games, and I think most of those guys you said then will probably get a chance to play. I think most of them have had injury problems at some point as well. Let's say Clement was out for a while of injury, and Myler had a little injury which took him out of the team, and then he never really got back into it. But yeah, I think he will get a go. Zatalai is still out injured for a few weeks, so there's a spot in midfield there to play at some point. And yeah, the squad does need trimming in January. There's no two ways about it. I think people like Popper and Harriott and Clement will probably be the 3 that you'd look at and say they're the most likely to start with, and then see who's sort of fit and available come January after that. Another name as well, Danny Loader. It sounds like he's going to be in the squad at the weekend as well. Paul Clement said he's basically as part of the first team squad now, so that's another place that's going to be taken up for one of the senior players who won't be involved because of that, you'd imagine. So that's another person that you could possibly move on. You'll have to see who he replaces in the squad. I think Sims will probably come back in now. Barrow's out, so it'll be a chance for him possibly off the bench again, which obviously he's done quite well off the bench before, so I think he'll probably will get on the pitch at some point at Wigan, so it's down to him to then take his chance and get back in the team. So yeah, there's lots of these players who want an opportunity to play, and I think they will get it over these next few games when there's two games a week. It's just down to them to take these opportunities. You can't say any of them that are out of the team have been brilliant when they've played. I think they've all had a decent chance, some more than others, but yeah, I think they'll get chances, and I say a couple of them possibly this weekend. I think maybe Myler and Sims might have to come off the bench to start with rather than being thrown straight in. But you never know. They've had a couple of weeks to think on it. Paul Clement, he might try and change it up a little bit.
I think that's the thing, really. I think there are some games, where you look at the lineup and potentially not too sure about it, and they actually have a good game. I think the Bristol City game is a prime example. I think there are plenty of question marks over the likes of Liam Kelly being involved. He obviously had a very good game there, obviously got his goal and proved that he should be in the lineup. But then you look at whether these players are sort of performing consistently. I mean, I don't think any of the squad have really sort of put in the performances to justify their position week in, week out. So I think for me, those players potentially who haven't been getting the chances, certainly deserve the opportunity to at least prove themselves in 1 or 2 games that they could be playing over a couple of the guys that aren't at the moment. And you mentioned Danny Loader then. I was going to move on to talk about him now. I mean, I obviously picked Josh Sims for my lineup over Sam Baldock, and I didn't think he had his best game against Ipswich. I think missed a couple of big chances, that could have won the game towards the end. He's obviously played on the left wing in recent weeks, Baldock. I mean, do you think that's the reason potentially for him not quite performing, or is it perhaps time for someone else to be given a shot in that front line? As I mentioned, Mark McNulty still waiting for his chance, really. And Danny Loader, of course, he had another successful international break away with England. I think, again, the scoring, I think, for the under-19s, I think. I mean, at the moment, sort of goal scoring doesn't seem to be too much of a problem for Reading. Obviously, Yaku Meito's banging form, I think 6-6 or 6-5 or something like that. But, we are probably going to need, at some point over these next couple of weeks, as we get games week in, week out, someone else is going to need to step up, I think, especially with Bodvarsson now injured as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Loader gets on the pitch at some point on Saturday. It sounds like Clement's fully won over by him now. And yeah, like you say, Meite's been the one banging in the goals, but he is carrying this injury, so it's going to have to manage it a little bit. He played against Ipswich injured and scored a couple of goals, so it didn't seem to hamper him too much. But we spoke to him today at Hogwood, and he said he's still got a problem with his ankle. He's getting treatment for it, so when you come now to 2 games a week, you have to be a bit careful, I suppose, and that might be when McNulty comes in. That might be when Baldock goes back up front. I went with Baldock mostly. I think he's quite a hard worker, he seems to be, and in an away game you probably need something like that. But Sims equally can do that job. He's obviously played at wing back a little bit, so Sims for Baldock wouldn't be a bad shout at all. I think Baldock might get moved back up front again at some point, like I say, and yeah, Loader, hopefully, I think everyone wants to see him now. He's obviously scoring goals wherever he plays, or whatever sort of team he's in, so why not give him a go in the first team? I suppose the only thing from Clement's perspective is if he plays Loader, he's then leave McNulty out again, and how do you manage these players, the senior players that you've got a big squad here that if you start putting youngsters in, then they're going to get even less of a chance. But I think Danny Loader's one who sort of stood out from the pack. Him and Ron Motor are the ones who deserve their chance in the team, and I think Loader's going to get it soon enough.
A rumour over the international break, a couple of German teams potentially watching Loader's progress. So I mean, whether that's true or not, I think certainly the point stands that if Loader's not given his chance, certainly in the next couple of months, then certainly in January there'll be bigger teams potentially sniffing around him. Obviously, he's played with the likes of Jadon Sancho and Phil Foden at international level, so he certainly seems as though he's good enough. But it'll be interesting to see whether he gets his chance and whether he does indeed move on. But prediction time for this one then, Tom. I think before the international break, we went from sort of being too negative against Bristol City to then being too positive against Ipswich. So really what happens against Wigan is sort of anyone's guess at the moment. But what are you going to go for?
I'm going to stick with being positive and go for a win. I think I'm still bottom of prediction league, so we'll just keep going for wins and eventually maybe it'll turn. But yeah, I'm going to go for 2-1 to Reading, but with not too much confidence in that, because I think we're going to be right up for it, having lost 4 in a row. But yeah, I think Reading go there and win 2-1. You never know. We'll go for 2-1 and see how it goes.
I will say 1-1. I think we're going to get it home, and they'll want to prove that they're not as bad as their recent results suggest. I think their recent games have been sort of against the likes of Leeds and Middlesbrough, both sort of sides up there at the top of the Championship, so perhaps not quite representative of their team as a whole. But I mean, certainly this game, we mentioned it briefly earlier, but this game does certainly seem more winnable for Reading, obviously than the trip to Leeds, which comes immediately after on Tuesday night.
Yeah, definitely. I think Reading did win at Leeds also, didn't they? I think that Leeds seem to be a different prospect this year. I think it's on TV as well, isn't it? So that'll be one for everyone to watch just how good Reading are these days. So I think Wigan will certainly be the one that they'll look at. And yeah, it won't be, none of these games coming up in the next few weeks going to be easy. They've got to win a couple of them or they'll end up back in the bottom 3, and they'll be all the same sort of talk will come around again. So yeah, I think it's a big game for Reading on Saturday. Like I say, Wigan, they are a decent side at home, and I think Reading went up there a couple of years ago and won pretty well. But it's going to be as Clement said, it's going to be a tough physical game, and hopefully Reading can battle their way through. I'm not sure it'll be particularly pretty, but yeah, I'll stick with 2-1, and hopefully that'll jump Reading up a couple of places as well.
I think it was 3-0 a couple of years ago. Obviously in the Apstam season, where I think that was part of sort of a run of 4 or 5 wins in a row, sort of around this sort of same period. Actually, I think we went up to Wigan and won 3-0. But I think that might potentially, not to jinx things, but I think that might actually be our only win there in about 7 or 8 games. So hopefully that can be broken at the weekend. But that Leeds game that we mentioned there will be previewed on the main podcast. I think will return on Sunday night. Mark Mayo joined on that one by Stars Roger Titford to discuss his new Reading FC related book. That Wigan game will be reviewed on that show as well. Then it is back to the Mansstad next weekend as Reading host Stoke City, and that fixture will be covered right here on the Tilehurst End Weekend Preview this time next week. So keep an eye out for that one. In the meantime, check out the website at tilehurstend.com. Plenty of content on there at the moment, including a position-by-position review of the season so far, grading each player out of 10 and giving you the chance to do the same. So go and check that one out. As for the working paper, Tom, what can we look forward to in the next few days as Championship football returns?
Yeah, so obviously, like you say, we've got the 2 games, Wigan and Leeds away games, and we spoke with Paul Clement and Yaku Mete today, so there'll be stuff up from them. We've also, obviously, the latest on the CEO situation. Simeon Pickup did a really good column this week, actually hit the nail on the head, really saying that Ron Gourlay never really got Reading. I think that was probably the biggest problem in the end, and so that's up on workingpaper.com now as well, and I'll put all the Mete and Clement and the Leeds stuff up on Wigan stuff up on my Twitter at Tom J Crocker.
Fantastic. Make sure you go and check all of those out then. Thank you very much then, Tom, for joining me on the Tilehurst End Weekend Preview as ever this week.
Pleasure. Thanks, Olly.
No worries at all. And thank you at home for listening to this week's show. Safe travels if you are journeying up to Wigan this weekend. Come on, you R's.
The Tilehurst End Podcast by Reading fans for Reading fans.